Hey everyone, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Going to take a minute to talk about Anchor. I've been with Anchor for a little over 2 years now, and podcasting couldn't be easier. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it is free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Let your voice be heard. Hey everyone, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast, coming to you from indoors. Sometime here before long, I'll get back out to the wood shop. I need to do something to get my Wi-Fi out to my wood shop so I can do my podcast in that environment. I just like the vibe. If you're just stumbling into this podcast, this is primarily a 12-step based recovery podcast. Although we do have people from all walks of life in at times. We have had guests dealing with recovery from divorce, recovery for people who are nicotine cessation people. We've had just about anything that what I'm aiming at is people who are finding their true selves, finding their true voice, aiming at being a better version of themselves day by day, however that comes about. One way we do that around here is through this program called 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. It is the 12 steps for anyone. It is for those who don't fit in traditional 12-step fellowships. I like the 3 niches is what I've come up with. It's for those who don't fit in the 12-step fellowships. They don't suffer with substance abuse, overeating, gambling, any of the other 100 or so 12-step fellowships out there. What everybody inside of the 12-step fellowship calls a normie. You are a normal person, but you're looking for something more in life, so maybe some new tools. For people who just can't find it in places like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and it's just not landing for them, the same tools can be available outside of that environment, and that's what we're doing. And it's also for people who want another dive. I say a deeper dive, maybe into the 12 steps, some different methodology than maybe what you were brought up using. It's the same basic 12 steps. I know all over the world they use them a little bit different. It's like tribal knowledge, how this 12-step thing, this 12-step framework is being used successfully, and all of them work. And I've always been encouraged by my sponsor to seek out new teachers and test that waters like that. So this might be an opportunity for those folks. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. The book is by James Christopher Cohn. It can be found on Amazon, and you can contact me through Facebook or hook up through the podcast. spiritualunderground.org is the website. And if you want any more information about that, I always want to give a shout out to Darren Frank. His music is what I play for the intro and outros of this. He's my grand sponsor, and he's been very influential on my recovery. Hell of a dude. So we'll get, you guys are getting tired of hearing me talk about Clubhouse probably. But I have just found a new community, and then it's allowed me to broaden my horizons, to say the least. I'm getting to meet a ton of cool people. For the most part, my 12-step walk has been surrounded just by local people from right around town, and I think that's the way most people do. You show up at some meeting across town and branch out from there. But this has allowed me to meet people who are in recovery from all over the world. Actually, if you stay up late enough, you get some people coming in from Europe into some of these recovery meetings, and that is just super cool. I just love that in 1935, some broke down drunk put together some 12 steps, and it has spread all over the world. My guest today, we met there. We were supposed to, I had her scheduled a little while back. It was going to be on the day of her 36th sobriety birthday. And I remember she had a lot on her plate, and this certainly wouldn't take a priority in most. I always say, I don't want you coming here if there's any kind of stressful or thing around it. That's just not the energy we want to do. And I frankly can't remember exactly. I think you were getting ready to launch something, like getting ready to start off on some kind of program, I think. And anyway, it didn't work out, but we got it rescheduled. We had a conversation about a week ago where I was the guest on her show. So I love that cross pollination deal. I was looking up a minute ago, and I Googled you. And my guest today is Maureen, founder of Emerge Leadership Academy, leadership trainer, inspirational speaker, coach, author, helping leaders emerge, evolve, and lead their life to create a bigger impact in all they serve. That is my mission. That it's interesting that I see certain people who get sober and blossom to a point where they just really have a drive for helping other people, just wanting to lift people. And, when you bump into them, you don't know what you're feeling at first, man, but the energy people like that put out is fantastic. It makes me want to be close to them physically and get to know them. Welcome to the show, Maureen.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we're going to learn a little bit about you. Every time I have somebody on the show, I feel like they've walked off and I got a new friend. And I just love learning, listening to people's walks, and I can pick up stuff and use it in my recovery and use it in a way I can help others. So what was your sobriety date?
So I've been sober since February 3rd, 1985. And
Ooh.
For that, I am truly grateful. That's really through the grace of God and the fellowship of the program.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you live now?
I live in Connecticut now, but I got sober in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Connecticut. I took a geographical cure.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll hear about that. I always like to talk to people and ask them, it's interesting to me to hear people's family backgrounds, what their perspective is. That's the other thing about getting sober. I started realizing that my perspective of my childhood is not entirely accurate, but it's getting more accurate now. I would have told you some things about my childhood that now I know are not true. So how'd you grow up? Did you brothers, sisters, have intact
Oh,
family,
yeah.
divorce?
Yeah. My story goes like this. My parents had 6 kids in 8.5 years.
Woo.
Yeah. I was number 3. We call that Irish Catholic. And so I was just one of the pack. I was right in the middle, and I was told what to do and when to do it and how to do it and why, sometimes why. I didn't get a lot of choices. You're told when to take a bath and when to go to bed and what to eat and when to shut up and when to open up, So there was rules, but we had a pretty good time. My father did become an alcoholic, but that wasn't until I was closer to 12. And we had a major family event where our house burnt down.
Ooh.
And so there was some drinking that had started before that for him, and then afterwards in great detail, in excess. But
were you home when the house burned down?
I was actually babysitting next door for 2 little kids, and the parents didn't get home until like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the fire happened about 1 o'clock. My dad was up waiting for us, but he had fallen asleep on the couch. And honestly, they said it was an electrical, but I think it was probably a cigarette.
That's what I was just, when you said fall asleep on the couch, that was going to be my guess.
Yeah, something happened. But my sister was babysitting across town, and the 4 boys were all sleeping in their beds, as was my mom. And my dad woke up, the couch was on fire. He tried to drag it out the front door, and the old wallpaper, in those days, wallpaper, everything caught on fire and went straight up into so it was not a good scenario. Anyways, He got 3rd-degree burns on his hands and his feet. Everybody got out okay, except for him. But yeah, and then it was a 7-alarm fire. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom woke up to her house on fire when she was a little girl. And she speaks of that with, I would classify it as trauma.
Oh yeah, it was very traumatic. The whole family. So I'll tell you a little bit more. My dad came over. I had fallen asleep on the sofa while I was waiting, and he had been over earlier that night to watch TV with me. And then he left, and I heard a knock on the door. I woke up in the middle. I didn't know what it was. He knocked again. I looked, and there was my father, and I was like, did he come back to watch more TV with me? You know, like I was confused. So I open the door. He's in his bathrobe. He comes in. He says, "Where's the phone?" So I bring him into the other room. This is when we still had landlines, you
Yep.
know. And he says, "Where's the phone book?" Well, it was right next to the phone. That's when I knew something was wrong. And I said, "Dad, what's wrong?" And he said, "Oh, our house almost burnt down, and I'm calling the, you know, the other the people who my sister was babysitting at to make sure she wasn't still in the house. Everyone got out, but the two girls aren't there. You're here, and I want to make sure Robin is not in that
Yeah.
house, you know."
Yeah.
So I took a quarter of a turn to the right, and I looked out this huge bay window. And when he had said our house almost burned down, the freaking house, there was flames shooting like 30 feet into the air, 50 feet into the air, every color you can imagine: red, blue, orange, green, yellow, because the lights were flashing from all the emergency vehicles. And
Mm.
it was terrifying,
I'll
you
bet.
know. And he got off the phone. He said, "It's okay. She's on her way home right now. So I know she's not home yet." And he left. I didn't realize it, but he was in shock. He had third-degree burns on his hands and his feet. And then the neighbor's mom came over, Mrs. M, and she came over and sat with me for another hour before the parents got home of the people that I was babysitting for. But my whole family was separated for weeks. And as a family of 8, that's not okay. And my
Yeah.
birds died that night. And here's the other
Oh,
kicker: I had just that day, I was 11. I was a couple months shy of 12 years old. I had just that day, with my very own money, I bought my first 3-speed red Columbia bicycle.
oh man.
And the first thing I saw on the porch that early the next morning was the melted, ruined bike on the, yeah, trauma, I'm telling you. And
Yeah.
my grandfather's paintings all burnt, all of our clothes gone. But I have I got to tell you the end part, because an amazing thing happened that day. Because really, as the sun rose into the sky, my father came home from the hospital. All the kids, you know, got back. There were people. It was a Sunday morning, and all the churches had collected money, and kids
Mm.
had gone around in their neighborhoods. They heard about the fire, and people started showing up with like cans of money, and you know,
Wow.
and furniture and boxes of clothes, because we had all these kids, and gift certificates to restaurants and places where we could go and get free stuff. And I'm telling you, it was such an outpouring of love. And everyone who spoke to me said, "Maureen, you're so lucky. You are so lucky that no one was killed, that no one was
Yeah.
hurt." And so what I started off in the beginning of that day feeling like, this is the worst day of my life. My parakeet died, my bike was ruined, you know, all my stuff was gone. I felt like, wow, I ended up thinking this is the best day of my life, because we have so much love, we have so much support, and all these people, you know, came together
It's
to
fantastic.
for my family. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
That
amazing.
that that part of it's fantastic.
Yeah, the shift of the mental, you
Yeah.
know, mind shift to see the just the love that
Yeah.
came out of everyone. Yeah, didn't
And
stop me from becoming an alcoholic,
all
but
right. Yeah. Yeah.
but it was a huge amount of shift and change for my family at that time. And that's, I think, when my dad really started drinking heavy.
Really. Hmm.
Yeah,
You
to
think,
cope.
yeah, I know this is just, it's completely supposition, but if I would imagine if it was started by him and that there's some guilt that he cannot swallow,
Right.
and without some kind of way to deal with that, which,
Oh, I'm
you
sure.
know,
Yeah.
I bet he was, I'm just guessing here too. Probably a tough man who, that just he's not going to go seek some help, and
You know what? My father was a very, very gentle soul.
yeah,
He was a very meek, mild mannered, you know, he was in advertising, he was a writer,
huh,
and and he was very gentle soul. That's all I can say about
Yeah.
it. But for a while, of course, in my, mean, arrogant adolescence, and my ego, I thought he was weak and spineless.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
only in
Yeah.
my maturity, in my adult years, that I realized what a beautiful, peaceful man. There was nobody that had any bad things to say about him.
Wow,
Yeah.
very cool. And by
But
strong, I meant more of the will. Like I'll get through this on my own. The
oh yeah,
typical male kind of thing that will just really. And I don't know that that's. I can only speak from that, and I do believe it is true that that it's tough. It's tough for men, especially a couple generation ago, kind of stuff, to reach
oh,
out and say I'm hurting.
it's very true. In fact, he had gone through a 30-day alcohol treatment program, and he started going to meetings, and he just couldn't get it. He kind of turned into a binge drinker,
Mm,
basically, as
yeah,
opposed to a daily drinker. But still, he just couldn't get it. And
yeah,
there were at times we thought maybe he's just constitutionally incapable of being honest with himself.
mm,
And he had a lot to, quote, live up to. He's had a very strong-willed father,
mm,
and my grandfather, and who was also very, very successful. And he was much more like his mom.
mm.
Yeah, meek and mild, and gentle. And it's tough to be in a world with, when so much is demanded of you, and other people, have ideas of what masculine should be and all of
Mhm.
that stuff. But he didn't get it. He didn't make it, and he's been gone now probably 19 years.
Oh,
And he had pancreatic cancer, which I think is a direct result of
mm.
the
Yep,
drink.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. Uh, how'd you do in school? What was what'd you feel like as you was growing up school wise and all that?
I'm laughing because that was like a joke, school. So here's the thing about school. I My best year, when alcohol really worked for me, was ninth grade, when I was 14 years old. I started drinking when I was 13,
Can you
but and smoking pot and doing drugs. And 14, it worked for me. I was
Yep.
popular. I had the lead in the school play. I was also in what we call junior high, but now people call middle school. So seventh, eighth, and ninth.
Uh-huh.
And then high school was 10, 11, and 12.
That's the
So
way mine
I
was
was
too.
on the top of my grade. I got straight A's. I had boyfriends. I was like cool because there was, I can't even tell you, I was in the special singing choir. I was also smoking cigarettes. So that was the only year my voice really worked for me. I was in the school band. I played the flute. And again, I was creative. I was active in everything. And I really had a good time until a couple of traumatic events occurred at the end of ninth grade. Very traumatic for me. And then after that, everything went downhill. So that summer, I got mono. I had fallen in love, and I got hurt. And there was also some things that happened in my family, and my parents weren't doing so well. And anyways, the long and the short of it is, I started taking drugs and doing anything that anyone gave me. I was always sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night. There was actually an incidence of rape. There was
Mm.
a lot of really difficult things that happened in my life. And when I even skipped the first day of 10th grade because I was so afraid to even go. I just didn't even know who I was at all. But I
Oh,
went,
what a
but
shift from ninth to 10th.
yeah,
A completely different person almost.
completely. And in 10th grade, I actually missed, I counted on old report cards, 68 days of school. And there's only
Wow.
like 180 in the whole year.
Right. Yeah.
So I was constantly skipping school, so much so that the first week of my junior year in high school, I spent in detentions making up for the previous year's detentions I never went to.
Wow.
Yeah, and the same thing in 12th grade. In 12th grade, they wanted me to spend a week in detentions before they would give me my schedule. And
Mm.
after the first day, I went down to the principal's office and I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to quit right now, or give me my damn schedule. And he gave it to me. Thank
Mm.
God. And they put me in a work study program, so I was able to leave school every day at noon and go to work in the afternoon. And that's what I did. I had some activities like Distributed Education Clubs of America, DECA, it's called. It was one of those things, and I was the school store manager. It was so fun. So, anyways, there was a couple of teachers that really helped me through that senior year of high school, and I almost didn't make it because because of all the school I skipped. Because like if I didn't want to go, like what the hell, I'm not going to go. That's how I was. It's like you can't make me. I'm a free agent here. If there's a party or I need to get high, or I'm going to the beach, or it's too nice to go to school, or there's an asshole in that class, I'm not going. That's how I was. I just was like, you're not telling me what to do. I never wore shoes. I put cigarettes out with my bare feet. They were like leather. I shot darts and I smoked, I smoked all the time. I was constantly shooting, shots and I played pool and I just, yeah, I was that kind of.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
That kind of Mo. I was Mo. I could tell dirty jokes for hours. I started drinking in bars when I was 16. The drinking age at that time was 18 in Connecticut. And I just, as soon as you get a license, you can change the date of when you were born.
Yep.
Nothing like it is today.
Yeah, I used to do that for money. Alter driver's licenses when I was in high school.
God bless you. Yeah.
Now
I'd kill you if you did that for my kid, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy what we did.
Yeah. Do you recall the first time you drank? Do you remember like what
I do.
Most people do.
Yeah, I was 13 years old and I drank a can of beer and I didn't really like the taste of it, but I loved how it made me feel. It was a big old can of Michelob or something. And I was with, some friends and we got all crazy and I couldn't wait for it to happen again. That was it. Every night I was drinking a can or two of beer. And pretty soon, by the time I quit drinking, 24 years old, I could pretty much drink beer all night, unending. It hardly even affected me. Yeah. If I had a couple of shots, that was it. Or if I smoked pot or did drugs, not good.
Yeah, that's why I gave up pot, is because it was putting me under the table. I couldn't continue drinking, and I didn't want things that would stop me from drinking.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, no, not this. It is that 13, 14-year-old time range, and that's why I went ding, ding, ding. I call them bell ringers because I hear, there's I'm over 100 interviews here doing this, and 13 and 14 pop up probably 80 to 90% of the time when people start. And I was talking to a young man just last night, our home group meeting, we had a guy come in and it was 26 and, and it's a number he threw out. He said, well, I started when I was 13. I'm like, well, yeah, you and all the rest of us,
yeah,
it is. There's a pattern, and I see that, there's these same things. And I didn't hear you say this one though, but I didn't, the other thing is how many people talk about not feeling like they fit in, and they really had a lot of trouble, feeling like they were a part of things. But it sounded like at least in the 9th grade, you were a part of everything.
That was the only year it worked for me. I really have gone back and looked at that, but yeah, it's true. And I have interviewed a lot of people too. And I think most of us, 80% of alcoholics start early in their teens. It's a time I went off in sobriety and got my undergraduate degree in psychology. And it's so prevalent that age of 13 and 14 is when we break away from our parents. This is the time to break away from the pack and exert your independence. It's just that some personalities are much more apt to do that and rebel than other personalities, depending on who you are. But it doesn't matter which generation you come from. It's usually around that age. And in the 70s, it was, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, that was the culture of America. That's what you did to break away.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
But my sister didn't. Like, she just read books and played the clarinet and spoke French, So.
Yeah, that is a good question. Did other siblings go down that road, or?
My older brother and I, Larry, we were partiers. So we smoked and had the same circle of friends, and we hung out together and did all that stuff together. Although he did not turn out to be an alcoholic, but my youngest brother ended up getting sober. He's got like, geez, 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, nice.
7 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
also
that's a good
that's
thing.
another interesting thing to watch families and brothers and sisters grow up, and some don't go that direction, and others do. And I know, at least I believe, or what I've been taught, is there's some genetic component to this thing, but it's certainly not an automatic thing. And then I've known specifically a couple kids that I remember their dad was out, raging. You just didn't want to be around. Like, I mean,
Right.
the car might be parked in the front yard.
I
And
was lucky. I'll tell you, because I've heard those stories too. And my dad, thank God, wasn't like that. But
yeah.
still, he was absent.
Yep. Yeah,
He
right.
wasn't emotionally completely unavailable.
Yeah. And I watched
Yeah.
those siblings. One of them said, "I'll never touch that stuff." That was the message that they got because of
Yeah.
watching that. And the other two ended up being substance
Just like,
abusers, and yeah, and it's just it's interesting. The drinking was so normalized around my family. I mean, it was nothing for people to have beer. Now, one thing I don't remember is people that demonstrated like alcoholism. I had one uncle who, I should say, but he was so fun and happy all the time. That's what he was, but he drank all the time, and he ended up coming home from work at 49 years old and sat down on his bed to take his shoes off and died right there.
oh my.
Yeah, and I have a number of cousins and aunts and uncles that we were all really close in same town and all that, and uh, but just watching it, and so when I would say, when I can describe that first time I got drunk, but I also remember, getting people beers and taking a sip off of it. And I had an uncle who loved to drink whiskey and water, and he would sit in his recliner, and they didn't have any kids, and I think my mom and dad would rent me out to him once in a while, rent me and my brother out to him once in a while, and we would stay there, and I loved my Uncle Ronnie and Aunt Janet, loved them to death, but Uncle Ronnie would sit there, my mom's brother, and stack cigarettes up. I mean, constantly, just smoke one after the other, and
Yep.
he would stack them up in this ashtray like firewood. They would be right in a row. He didn't
Oh,
stub,
geez.
he didn't just stub them out, and it would be a big pile of them. And I remember when he would tell me, he would have me stick my finger in his drink and taste it, and I'd do that, and I remember one time when he got up to go to the bathroom, and I reached over there and I grabbed it and I took a drink of it, and I'm thinking now, what made, it's interesting that I had that desire, and this is single digits, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
That's because he normalized it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
In my family, it was wine, but they had cocktails for dinner every night.
hmm,
They had cocktails. So there was gin and tonic before dinner. That was how their parents raised them. Their parents all had cocktail hours. It was always, that was the culture in my family. And then, and I would also tell you that both of my grandparents, my parents were best friends. Right. So
so
when my parents,
your grandparents were best friends?
yeah, my grandparents were best friends with each other as
Huh.
couples, right? And when their two kids kind of fell in love and decided to get married, they both got sat down and said, "You better not screw this up because,
Oh, hey, we're
like,
friends and we don't want
yeah,
you ruining it.
right." And I remember the story goes that when they first got pregnant with my oldest sister, and there was a baby between the two great grandfathers, and they really tied one on apparently that night, talking and hosting about how great this child was going to be because it came from them, and all that stuff. But in my house it was drinking wine.
Hmm.
And so probably about, I don't know, I'm sure 9 or 10 years old when I would start to say, like at Christmas or Thanksgiving, can
Right.
I have a sip? Can I have a little bit? And they would give me, the little tiny bit in the glass. And so I learned to love wine from an early age. And now even they drink wine all the time.
Hmm.
They'll have a bottle of wine. When I say they, I'm talking about like my mom and my sister, when the three of us get together, and they'll have a bottle of wine. And my mom drinks probably 2 glasses of wine every night.
Yeah.
And it's not, her life is not unmanageable. She wakes up every morning and does all the things she needs to do. She doesn't have hangover. She's not falling. It's just, that's her culture. It's
Yep.
always been that way. And that's how it is. Yeah.
Yep.
She
Yeah.
loves it.
I know those folks exist, but you know how we
I
all say,
know.
it doesn't make any sense. And I think it's like a little bit of like a phantom thing, I'm like, nah, not really. There's more
But
to
she's
it than
not
that. But
near as emotional as I am. I
mm,
don't know about you, but I think that's the whole key for me. It's
yeah.
like, I didn't want to feel all that pain of betrayal and all the stuff, I'm an empath and I pick up on other people's suffering and I pick up on my own suffering. And sometimes especially in those early years, I couldn't figure out whose pain it was,
Yeah.
was it mine or someone else's? And when you feel very deeply like that, you learn to
Yeah.
turn it
You
off or
do
stuff it.
something, yeah, to insulate yourself from it. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. My sponsors always said, that thing about, yes, everybody has these feelings that we have that we talk about now, Alcoholics Anonymous, place like that, this self-centeredness and all the stuff. But the one he says, his belief is that alcoholics feel it harder.
Hmm.
And just if you just crank that volume up a little bit, then we, need something to shut her down. So you did
Mm-hmm.
graduate high school, and did you go to college or?
I took a couple of classes, but I knew my mom, she wanted me to go to college so bad. But in my family, we couldn't afford it.
Hmm,
My parents weren't about to pay for it. So I had to pay for it myself. I took a couple of classes and I didn't want to. I wanted to party. So I got a job, a full-time job, and then a part-time job at night. And that's what I did. And I was in relationships and I got a job in a bar so that I could always make ends meet and also drink with all the guys that were
yeah,
there
yeah,
and, flirt with anybody I wanted and get drunk at the same time,
right,
drink for free because you can when you're working in a bar. So yeah, it was a lifestyle for me after that. Not a
yeah.
good one, but sometimes it's good because it brings you to your knees faster.
Yeah, that's another one of the things is that I watch some people, and once in a while we'll have some people flirting around with this thing, and I almost, when they finally have something critical happen, makes me happy. It's funny that I'm like, all right, now something is
Oh,
going
you're
to hit them at the
desperate?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now you
It's
got
good
a
to be
chance.
desperate.
Yeah,
You get a chance.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I did go out there for quite a few years. I ruined my reputation and um, I was not happy. I was constantly searching for more. I knew I had more potential, but I didn't know how to access it. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew if I didn't go to college, I wasn't going to really amount to much. I went from working at a toy manufacturer in accounts payable to Colt firearms,
oh
right?
really? Yeah,
Yeah. So I worked in the custom gun shop there for a couple of years.
man, I like
And
that.
I had a great time because I was in the shop with a whole bunch of guys,
Yeah,
right? Doing engraving on these guns and all that stuff. And every Friday afternoon, there was drinking. Okay. We had those machines, Coke machines, that it would pour out Coke, a cup of ice with Coke in the, would pour it out like it, so you just had a freestanding cup. And then the big boss would come around with the rum and you would just pour the rum right into the Coke. And I mean, people were leaving, clocking out and going home drunk after having three
yeah,
of those, it was crazy. But again, I was one of the guys. I never wore makeup. I didn't have a pocketbook. I was Mo. I felt like I was always wanted to be one of the guys. And having grown up with four brothers, that was easy enough, to fit right in. That was
yeah.
how I felt like I fit in. But I always had one girlfriend that we would go to the bars together if I wasn't in a relationship. If I was in a relationship, then I was shooting darts and shooting pool in the bars with the
Yeah,
guys.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And so that was what I did for a few years. And then a long-term relationship I had for a couple of years. I had moved out from my home at 19 and I moved in with a man who was 12 years older than me. And he ended up, we ended up, I left him, we split up. And that was when I really started going downhill, and I started thinking that the reason I was so messed up was because of my father, and the reason I was so messed up was because of Connecticut. Connecticut sucked, and these people sucked, and
Yeah.
whatever. And I just was always blaming people, places, and things for my discomfort. But I did start going to Al-Anon, believe it or not, because again, I thought the reason I was so messed up was because of my dad. And I'd get out of there and go drinking. It was just, that's the kind of stupid, right? But I also learned a lot, and I learned that it didn't get better. Alcoholism was a progressive disease. Anyways, I decided to take the geographical cure, and I picked San Antonio, Texas, because that's where my roommate at the time had a brother that lived there. So I decided to go there. Because I had some place to go. I bought a one-way ticket. I felt so brave. I sold everything I had. I got rid of all my stuff. I just took a couple of suitcases and I moved down there. And I lived with him for 4 months before I got my own place. But I got a job as a teller in a bank. It was a pretty responsible job. And I thought, I am going to change my life. I am going to do things different. And within a year, I had created all the same freaking chaos that I had created back home. And after 2 years, I was really hurting. And a series of things happened. I ended up getting to being transferred to Austin, Texas with my job. I was working my way up in a wholesale picture frame supply company. And I was in a relationship with the manager, branch manager, and I was the customer service manager. We were together for about a year, and when they moved us to Austin, and then shortly after we got there, he did not want to move in together. We had been living together in San Antonio, but he said no, he wanted his own place. So we both got our own apartments, and then they shipped him to Phoenix, and they made me the branch manager. So suddenly I was alone. And I was drinking alone. I was super stressed out. Every time I couldn't stand drinking alone anymore, I would drive to San Antonio to go back and see my friends there. And I had a series of really bad experiences, and things like getting pulled over in the middle of the night, waking up out of a blackout with a cop in my face, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And one time I woke up at like 11 in the morning and the phone was ringing. I was like, what? And I picked up the phone, and it was the teller. Was that in San Antonio? Anyways, yeah, there was a lot of bad things that happened. Oh, that was why, because I was in the wrong town to go to work. I was, and they were like, where are you? It's like 11 o'clock. I'm like, what? And I was in San Antonio. I should have been in Austin at 8 o'clock opening the branch. Yeah, it was not good. So it was just bad. And I realized I actually had started back going to Al-Anon and working the steps in Al-Anon. And I had told my sponsor that I thought I might be an alcoholic. And she had me talk to her husband, and he told me his story, and then I told him mine, and it was the first time I had ever heard my story. And I realized that, oh my God, I haven't ever really gone more than 3 or 4 days without drinking since I was 13 years old. And the only reason I did that was because I had to be on medication where you couldn't drink.
Yeah, some circumstances would
Right.
prevent it.
Right. So anyways, I just realized and I did go to my first AA meeting, and I really consider that to be the first miracle in my life. And when I went through those doors, and I was broken, I despised myself. I hated who I had become because I was so out of alignment with who I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I woke up in places I never should have been. I've had death threats. I've had people follow me home. I've had stalkers. I've had been drugged. I mean, a lot of crappy things that happened when I was out there. And here I was knowing that I had so much potential, and yet I couldn't harness it. But I was a functional drunk. I went to work every day, except for when I woke up out of a blackout at 11 a.m. Except for when somebody drugged me. But see, that was me making excuses, right? So Yeah, it was bad. And then I came into the rooms and I got sober and I just worked that program every day. And I went to a group therapy program outside of the rooms. I got myself a daddy sponsor. I did my healing. I worked my steps. And I really had a major transformation. I changed everything about my life. And it was okay because I was in Austin. I didn't really know a lot of people there yet, right?
Yeah,
Because I had
right.
been
Yeah.
drinking alone. I got a new job, an individual contributor role, and I became a lot better person. About a year and a half was when I moved back to Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
moved back home pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I
I did
mean, in
because
the
I was
grand
so
scheme
sick
of
of,
things.
yeah, spending all my money going to Connecticut on vacation. I didn't I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to
Yeah.
go to other places.
You spoke
Yeah.
about that first meeting and you said, how did you feel walking in there? Did you feel this? I don't want to put words in your mouth. How was that when you went into the first one?
Well, it's actually a pretty cool story. I walked into that first meeting and there was probably about 50 people in the room and at least 10 or 20 people were hugging.
Mm.
Like a bunch of people were hugging each other and welcoming each other. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know any of these people. I was so hurting. I was so withdrawn and I didn't want to make eye contact with anyone. I slipped in, I sat in a seat and I kept my head down. And when you're looking down and not meeting anybody, nobody talks to you,
Yep.
and that's because that's what I wanted. I just wanted to be invisible and observe. And I was looking around and I didn't know if I was really an alcoholic or not. I wasn't ready to admit it. It took me about 6 days before I said, I would say, hi, my name is Maureen. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic.
Ah,
Until I finally related enough to know that I was. But anyways, I was sitting there and it turned out that this particular meeting was a chip meeting or a medallion celebrating years and months of sobriety. And so they started to give out the chips, and the whole meeting was just people who were coming to receive their medallion. If it was, during for that month, if they had gotten a whatever. And the first one had 30 days, and then there was a couple with 60 and so forth, and it went up. And there was like 4 people that had a year of sobriety. And I remember thinking, oh my God,
yeah.
that's amazing. That's so amazing. And then they kept going and they would tell like a 2-minute story, or just thank a couple of people. I just really want to thank my sponsor. She
Yep.
gave me a pink bat, so I
Yep.
wouldn't beat myself up or whatever,
Yep.
and it was pretty cool. And I listened to all their stories, but I could feel this despair rising higher and higher every time somebody else got, well, this person has 10 years, this person has 12, this person has 13 years, this person has 20, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And the last 2 people that got chips that night had 33 years of sobriety.
Yeah.
And I was only 24 years
Yeah.
old, and I was already like devastated with my life, right? And one of them's name was Fred, and the other one's name was Hope.
Oh, wow.
And the tears started streaming down my face. I can still get emotional when I think about Hope. I said to myself, oh my God, it's a sign. Maybe there's hope for me. Maybe there's hope for me. Maybe I could do this. And so after everybody finished their clapping and they wrapped up the meeting with the Lord's Prayer, somebody said in my little section, geez, nobody got a chip in our little section, whatever. There was like 8 sections around the room, and I said really quietly as I was picking up my pocketbook, it's going to be a long fucking time before I get one of those, like Eeyore would say,
Yeah.
and suddenly, hands shot out from everywhere on my shoulder, on my knee. Keep coming. It's okay. And suddenly people were talking to me and just come back again tomorrow. What's your name? And, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I shared a bunch. And after about 12 days of sobriety, it snowed in Austin, Texas. And they don't have snow removal equipment there. So I was able to, I mean, I couldn't get to the meeting. I just had to stay home. And what did I do? I got out my bowl and I scraped the screen and all the
Mm.
resin out of my bowl, and I made a little pile of resin, and I put it back in there, and I just smoke a couple of hits every hour, and I just kept myself going all day so I could make it through till I got back to the next meeting the next day. And that night, I went to get my mail at the end of the day, and I got a card from my mom. And she had sent me this beautiful letter about how proud she was of
Mm.
me, that I was in AA, and how much she loved me, and that she'd been praying for me and all this stuff. And she sent me that little footsteps prayer.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had ever read that. And I bawled my eyes out. And I
Mm.
went to the meeting the next day, and I cried, and I told everybody, oh, I know what you mean by powerless over marijuana, because I smoked pot yesterday, because I couldn't get to a meeting. And this big groan went up, in the audience. And after the meeting, I asked this woman, Michelle, to be my sponsor. And she said, okay, you're on day one, you're on step one. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. I'm on day 14. I've been sober for 14 days. She said, oh, no, 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 no. You smoked a mood altering chemical. That is not sobriety. And so today's the first day of the rest of your life. And that was February 3rd, 1985. I said, you know what? To myself, I said, I'm going to make it damn well worth it if I'm going to have to start all over again. Like 14 days was like forever for me. These days are, and I'm going to go buy a freaking 12 pack on my way home, and I'm going to drink myself silly, and I'll freaking start tomorrow, because I'm not going to waste this on a bowl of resin.
Yeah. Yeah. Instant resentment.
Right. She saw the look in my eyes. She said, you're not going anywhere alone. I'm coming with you. So she came home with me, and she helped me throw out all my paraphernalia, and even the, mirrors and the razor blades. She said, you don't plan on killing yourself, do you? So I got rid of all that. And that really was the first day of the rest of my life. And it's been an amazing, amazing life that I've been able to create for myself because of it. And I haven't told that amount of detail in my story for a long time.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you for doing that here. That's certainly the word that came to mind as I come out of I didn't really, so much of this happens in the rearview mirror, right? But hope is definitely, I said, I walked out of that meeting with a big bucket of hope, and that's something I hadn't had maybe my entire life. And, it didn't stick then, but still it planted that seed, and it ended up being the catalyst for what I have in my life today, for sure. But I just love that, watching that energy when a newcomer comes in and somebody brand new. And my very first sponsor said, you said you couldn't make eye contact. He says, yeah, they come in kicking their shoestrings, and you're looking down and everything.
Yeah, it's true.
And how the group joins up and comes and surrounds this person with love, and watch that impact on that individual as they begin to feel that and absorb it, whether if they're still kicking and screaming or not. Some of them completely bask in it, and some of them have got the rejection screens up because they don't know what to do with all that love. And it's a great thing. We had a brand new guy come in last night, and it's just unreal energy what happens in those rooms when that love button gets hit fully like that.
There's something about that energy vibration of love, right? You can feel it. You can feel angst, right? When you walk into a room when everybody's freaking, freaked out about something or anxious, you can feel that. When you walk into my AA home group room, and there's 75 people in the room, which I haven't experienced in a year now, but there is an incredible amount of love there. You can feel the higher level energy vibrations. I don't care how low you're feeling. When you walk in there, you just feel better, and people notice. And we have greeters and when anybody is new, when you say welcome, oh, I haven't seen you around here before, and what's your name? Oh, are you new here? And they'll usually say, this is my first meeting, or, oh, I'm just new here. You can tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
And you just introduce them with someone, like you said, and they get surrounded by love. It is a wonderful thing to see them
Yep.
like just light up the next time they come in, like, oh my gosh, I have friends here I just haven't met yet.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We will, my home group is a men's group, and you, people are physically affected by the energy of the love and
Yes.
compassion of one when they walk in there, and you can't help it, and I watch some people some people that can't deal with it, and
Oh, I know.
they can't even make it through the meeting, they bolt part the way through, and they're
Yeah.
it's too much for them. And then, you get those ones once in a while, man, where they're just like completely like blindsided by it, and they just lay themselves open to it. And you watch somebody, you get to see those first days, and then then you watch them get their 1 year, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and just make that progression. It's just so beautiful. Today there was a meeting, and they were asking what your very favorite thing to do in sobriety was. And my favorite thing to do is to help other people get sober and be a part of that. Watch that. That is my very favorite activity. They were looking for, like, what do you like to do? Like, do you like to go fishing? Do you like to go, no, man, I like to watch people bloom.
Yes, I totally agree. I did that for years. I will tell you though that after, gosh, I don't know. Well, I met my husband when I was like a year and a half sober.
Mhm.
And he was also a year and a half sober. Unbeknownst to me, he had gotten sober like 3 weeks before me, but we were living in different states at the time.
Mm.
And then I moved up here, and we met at a meeting before I even moved back here. But I was home for a funeral, and it was interesting. Anyways, and then we got together, and we ended up falling in love very quickly. And we got married at about 3 years of sobriety, and we had a baby when my baby shower was on my 5 year anniversary.
Really
And she
cool.
was born at the end of February. And now she's 31 years old. She's going to be 31 she just turned 31 at the end of February. Yeah. So it's March now. Yeah.
Yep,
Like,
already.
so yeah. And it's just unbelievable how fast the time has gone by. But there was a period of time from around, I think I was around 8 years sober until I was about 15 years sober. That's like 7 years. I didn't go to meetings.
Hmm.
I know. I had stopped going to meetings because I was working full time, raising a family, and I had, in my first couple of years of sobriety, when I first moved back a year and a half sober, to move back to Connecticut, and then I met Paul, and I also got myself a sponsor right away, and I had two people that I was sponsoring, and so we created a little group, and then it grew by one, and then another one, and then eventually, that's it. We're at 6 now, and we've been together for 35 or 33 years or whatever it is. And that alone, we were meeting a couple of times a month. So that carried me over. I just didn't need it. And I was working full time, and I started helping people at work. So I was doing, mentoring at work and training at work. And I was fulfilled. I felt like I don't need AA anymore. I'm good. I got it going on. And my husband was a drug and alcohol counselor, substance abuse counselor. And so he would come home from being in, helping people in treatment all day. And after 10 years of that, like, he was burnt out. He was like, or even sooner than that, but he was like, I'm not going to a meeting. I've just been walking around in it all day long. Like, I'm living it. Like, we're living our program now. All my friends, all my, my
Yeah.
family, everything is sobriety. But it was probably, I was about 15 or 16 years sober when one of my friends in our group, my little group of 6, was speaking somewhere or something. And I said, oh, I'll go and support you. That'll be fun. And I walked in that room, and I heard her speak, and there was sharing going on. And I just felt like, oh my God, I just miss this so much. Why am I not going to these meetings? Like, what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
really, it was amazing. So I did start going back to a meeting, and honestly, for probably 15 years, it's basically just the one meeting a week,
Yeah.
but it's my home group and I love it. And I've been running it online now for this past year because I have a Zoom account. And so I've been
Yeah.
running a Zoom meeting, and I happen to be the treasurer, but I've been doing a lot of service work in the past 10 years in various committees at the district level or the area level
Or
and
yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
When you
now I'm
said
just at
when
the
you
club level, but
yeah, when you said you didn't go to meetings, though, you still were getting, you were still having a meeting.
I was
You all
living.
were. You weren't just going to a named meeting out on town. You all
No,
were
I
having
just had
your
a
own meetings.
couple private meetings a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus I
Yeah.
had my sponsor and I could pick up the phone anytime I wanted. And we lived it in my relationship too. We live the steps, and we have studied enough to know. And we
Yeah.
do readings every morning now, and we're very
That's super cool to have that connection, that
yeah.
long-term connection like that. That's something I'm enjoying today is this growing together thing, because just January was 6 years for me, so it's still new really. And I'm really glad that I kind of still feel that way. When I don't is when real new people come in, then they make you feel like you got a million years.
It keeps
And
it green, as we
yeah,
say.
yep,
Yes.
yep, 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 yep. But to grow
Yeah.
and to have an established, well, they're my brothers. They really are. They're,
Your
uh,
family.
yeah,
They are.
yeah,
They're our family now. That's how I feel about my Sunday morning meeting.
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
love those people so much.
that
But I
thing
also
about.
know that I can walk into any meeting anywhere. Like we've gone on cruises together, Paul and
Hmm.
I, and we go down to the meetings and we meet people from
That's
all
fun.
over. And it's like, hey, friend of Bill's, yeah, and we have a meeting, and it's
Yep,
great. Doesn't
yep.
matter where you are.
Doesn't make any difference where you are. I've had the luxury of going to or the of meetings all over the place. I've been in the world too. I've been to a meeting in Thailand and in Japan. Those are my
Oh,
two
cool.
international ones, and
Wow.
I got sent to Japan a week after I had got off probation, and the trip was supposed to happen for work like 5 or 6 months earlier, and I was on probation, and my probation officer said, "Nope, nope, nope, you're not going." And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to tell my employer whenever it comes down because they
Oh,
didn't know any of it, and
okay.
I was on home incarceration for 9 months or basically a year. And I was afraid. I had traveled all the time and I was scared to death they'd ask me to travel, and they never did during that time. And I could, talk about watching that stuff, the source out there looking out for me.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Yes, sirree.
and
I
then,
totally get it. It's like,
and
oh, thank you. God does for us what we can't do for ourselves.
yep. And that trip kept on getting postponed, and I was on an airplane 10 days after I was off probation. And then, I
Wow,
hadn't been,
that's
I said,
close.
yeah, I hadn't been able to like leave the county without the permission of the state, the corrections officers,
Yep.
for 2 years, and then
And now
boom,
you're
I'm
flying
standing on the
halfway
other
around
side
the
of the
world.
world. Yeah, yeah, and that
Wow.
was a
How
really cool
long were you there
experience.
for?
We were there 3 weeks. We went
Okay.
over for some training and got to really spend some time there, and yeah,
Beautiful.
and sit in meetings where I couldn't understand a word they were saying, and they couldn't understand the word I was saying, but it didn't matter. That was so
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
You'd have a couple people who could get by with English, but for the most part, in the AA meetings, in the work environment, there's a lot of people could speak English. But when I went to the meetings, it was very
No.
limited to how much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have my little pamphlet they gave me. I've got the 12 steps in Japanese, and it is a little meeting book kind of thing.
That's pretty cool.
That
And
is.
so, still, though, even just sitting there, you're with other people who have the same disease as you do.
Yeah,
And even if you can't, understand it or hear it, you can feel it.
you could.
You can still feel it,
Yep,
right?
that's the saying exactly. It did not matter a bit that we couldn't understand one another, and they even asked me to share. And I could tell. I'm sitting there talking, and I'm thinking these people can't hear. They don't understand a freaking word I'm saying, and it didn't make any difference at all because the energy
That's
was there,
cool.
and yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah.
We can go participate in our recovery anywhere, and we're home no matter where we're at.
Well, that's what's so cool about Clubhouse too, because now we get to meet these people from all over and different, and it's not AA per se, but it's sobriety and it's
Yeah.
recovery,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And some people talk about the steps, but it's cool that you can talk about so many other topics there too.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the rules around the traditions. Some groups are less strict about that. My men's group is not very strict at all when it comes to that stuff. We run pretty fast and loose ship, but certainly partake in meetings that, because that's why I was kind of wondering about, you had the pot, right? And just in 2011, when my first AA meeting, and I'll say it's my first AA meeting that I went with a third tradition that I true desire, because I got some DUIs and stuff back when I was a kid, and they court ordered me to AA, and I don't remember any of it. So it wasn't technically my first meeting, but a couple guys, hushed me about the drug thing.
Oh,
You
geez,
know,
really?
yeah,
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 no, I have never had any, for many, many years, I identified, hi, my name is Maureen, I'm a drug addict, alcoholic. I said that for many years. I never had anyone say, hey, we only talk about drinking here. Nobody's ever said that to me. And I'm, I don't want to say old, but right,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
old now.
yeah. 36 years ago was a little while ago.
Right. When I was 24, but that's the thing, as we age and we mature, I don't know about you, but I still feel like, I have a very young spirit
Me too.
and, young attitude, I guess is what I want
Hmm.
to say. And I think that's because I know how to enjoy life now.
Yeah,
And I know how to really wrangle it in and feel the different levels of the energy, like we were talking about, and listen to my higher self. Um, yeah. So and meditate and really hear, what is the next step? And you know what it always is? Take care of yourself, develop others. Take care of yourself and take care of others. And don't hide away, just enjoy your life. Give it back, and help other people get the next leg up,
yeah,
because we're in this together, man. We just can't, we shouldn't have to do it alone. So that's been my sort of mantra all these years. And I'm so happy to be out of the corporate environment, so that 27 years in that job, and now I've been out for like 8 years, and it's so freeing and so fun. And sometimes even I've been doing leadership training across
uh,
New England for my job. And there have been some times where I have felt the urge within my intuition that said, these people need to hear your story.
yeah,
And it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, I will say, you know what? I need to tell you guys something. Or, this thought occurs to me. If hope you don't mind me sharing. I was a drug addict and an alcoholic during my teenage years, my early 20s, and I had a major transformation. So don't tell me that people don't change. I will tell you that people do change. And here's how I've seen many, many people change. And I'll share. And inevitably, somebody after those meetings will come up and say, I got sober in,
yeah,
2006 or whatever, they'll whisper to me, like, or they'll be loud about it. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
But that's the thing. When you're in a corporate environment, a lot of people don't want, nobody should know, because there used to be a big stigma to it. I think now more and more we're becoming much more open as a society,
hmm,
that we escape far too much, and there's too much mental illness now, and substance abuse, and people are dying every day.
yes,
And honestly, even the whole idea of anonymity
I agree
is
100%.
lifting, because we cannot hide in the shadows anymore. We need to shine our light and tell people, you can recover from this. You don't have to do it alone. And there's so many paths to recovery, just like there's many paths to God, or there's many paths to finding yourself. And so anyways, that's what I want to bring. It's
Yep.
this.
Hope. She's holding up a sticker with,
Yes. I got this from somebody I met. I don't know, maybe it was, I don't know, Instagram, I think. The Hope Dealer Project. This is from
I like that.
pluspeakproductions.com. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a
I'm a
hope
dealer.
dealer.
I'm a
I'm a
dealer.
hope dealer
I deal in
instead of a
hope.
dope dealer.
That is very cool. I like that a bunch. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't, and of course, when I just made the decision to start this podcast and I always say, I don't do anything without my sponsor is actually my best friend. We are so
nice.
close now together today. It's a miracle. Uh, but I don't do anything like my little thing I say is I say I don't do anything. If I'm doing anything any important than more important than buying new underwear, I talk to my sponsor about it. We just are in each other's daily dialogue and we
Yeah,
touch base and we know what's going on. But these kind of things, and I knew my anonymity was going to get blown out the window when I started doing this. Right.
of
And,
course.
yeah, so had to register that a little bit, but, I'm with you. I believe that, if I hold my anonymity too tight, I miss opportunities to help people. And that's not what we're supposed to be out here doing. Like you said, I'm not supposed to be hiding it. And you're right about that, and I understand. And sometimes I'll say some stuff and people take a little offense to it because there's some people that still have some hardcore ties to the traditions, and people won't do this podcast because of it.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
And I think that's a bit antiquated today. The stigma that was on the people when the big book was written and was a whole different world than what we have today.
It's very
And
true.
Employers have to treat this like an illness. They can't. You know,
That's right.
you can't. You're not going to get fired for. Now you can if you continue. That can be an
Yeah,
outcome. You're not protected at that level, but you
yeah,
get a chance anyway. And so and I like what you said. You feel pushed or nudged or whatever. I always say it's like a nudge from above, and I really do at times when I like somebody will be standing in front of me, and I'll be someplace, and I'll feel that like, okay, I'm supposed to say something. I'll look up in the air. Okay, well, you know what? Uh, I'm
a lot of
actually
times
going
it's
to
sort
you're
of,
sober.
yeah. And sometimes it even comes in meetings, right? So a lot of times I would just go to meeting after meeting and just listen, not say anything. And then one day I'll be in the meeting listening and I'll start feeling really anxious. And that's my cue, like, oh crap, I have to share,
Yeah,
or oh, I guess I'm supposed to say something. Like it's sometimes I don't even know. It's not a head thought, it's a body thought.
yeah, right.
Somebody needs to hear your message today, Maureen. And
Yep,
so I take it. And even whenever I do share or I do speak, I mean, I think so long as at least one person gets something out of this, I'm good.
yep,
And the more I share, sometimes I learn things about myself because as an extrovert, I often think out loud. And I do, I do learn things when I'm sharing, when I'm talking, because we ask God, don't we? We ask our higher power before we even begin. Please, God, speak through me. Let me share whatever message is supposed to come out today. And if somebody needs some healing, help me to find it for them or help me to be there for that. And just that little prayer, it really means a lot. And it does allow us to get out of our ego a little bit more and
yep,
put ourselves out there a little bit more. But it's a scary thing starting a podcast or writing
yeah,
a blog and telling people your story. And at first I was like, oh my God. But in the end, I realized that's absolutely who I am now. My whole life has been recovery first,
yeah,
relationships second, and God is always on the forefront, or my spirituality. And yeah, and now it's all about develop yourself, develop others, and it doesn't stop. I think sometimes, especially like when I'm in Clubhouse and I'm listening to all these different people from everywhere, it's so easy to start comparing yourself.
yep,
And I'm like, damn, I'm 36 years sober. Like I should be blah blah blah. And then I have to stop myself. Well, okay, I'm not responsible for the first thought, but I am responsible for the second thought. But instead of saying shut up, I say, thank you for sharing. Please be quiet to my inner voice, my
right,
inner
yeah,
critic. Like I'm still just doing the best I can with what I have. And I have a lot more tools and I have a lot of experience. But even in the past couple of weeks, I've been studying some new things that I'm learning about myself, and finding that maybe a certain strategy that I've been using hasn't really been working for me. And I am getting the message that I need to wait to respond. Stop trying to make things happen, but step back and let go and let God. I'm constantly being reminded you have to surrender. Stop trying to control everything, you know? So
Yeah.
that's a big thing for
Yeah.
me.
Easier
Letting
said
go,
easier said than
surrendering.
done, but some of early recovery was teaching me that, and I kept on finding these spots where I really wanted to take some action in some certain things, and my sponsor would, back me off of it and just, let's see what goes on. You don't have to make any change today. You don't have to, and these things would resolve in a way that I couldn't have guessed. I couldn't have
Yeah.
orchestrated, and it would be better, and he'd remind me, you think you could have done any better than that? And like,
Those are the
nope.
miracles,
Yep,
Dan,
they are.
right? The first, I say, like, the first miracle was when I walked through the door and I had the presence to listen to that nudge and get into the program. And the second one was about 3 months sober, when the desire to drink finally left me.
Mm.
Second miracle, no doubt. The third miracle happened about 10 months sobriety, and when I realized that God was not outside of me anymore.
Yeah.
I realized that God was within me. That
Yeah.
was a freaking miracle, because that came in self-acceptance and self-awareness, like deep self-awareness. Big miracle. And then, I mean, the miracles have never stopped.
Right. Yep.
The miracles have never stopped if you look for them,
Yeah. To
if
have
you
the eyes to
expect
see.
them. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta look for them. You gotta be aware. And when you get too caught up in all the ego crap of the day,
You
you
can't see it.
become you become wrapped up. You don't see miracles. You get depressed, or you get. But every time you go back to the first step, or the 11th step, or whatever, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it, and you do that surrender, it's suddenly there's a miracle again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. It's so fun
it's
to help.
amazing.
My sponsor was so good at pointing that stuff out to me. He kept on, we had this little thing, and it started on a particular item that happened in my life, but he said, you know what that is, don't you? And I remember I started off with my intellectualizing, going to tell him what this was, and he goes, well, let me tell you something, newcomer. And he would tease me, and he'd say, when your sponsor asks you, you know what that is? Your response should be, no, I don't. Why don't you tell me? And so we have a little running thing. And whenever we see miracles or whenever things go, we joke around today and we say, you know what that is, don't you? And it is so fun to help new people see those things that are changing in their lives, because I always like to say, I don't see me that well. I really don't. I don't see me, and I don't see I'm a lot better today, but we don't have the eyes to see these things that have happened to you, chalking things up to coincidence when you've been doing this work and things are working out for you. And like, no, this is because you're on the path, man. These things are happening because of this. And don't kid yourself. You step off this path, those things can go away really, really quick
It's
too.
very true.
And watch people, we lost a friend just not long ago that was on the path, and things were going good. And I've always heard this saying that sticks with me: don't let the life AA give you don't let the life AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. And as we get our stuff back and life starts going good, and
Right.
you start saying, well, I don't really need a meeting tonight. I don't, and you start drifting away, and the next thing you know, this guy was drinking and he was driving down the road and wrecked his car and died.
Damn.
And, had just, I'd never been more happy for a guy getting his 1 year, because he had been trying for longer than I'd been around, for some 8 years or something, to get a year. And he had 11 months at times and went back out. And yeah. And then it ended up being that tragic story,
That is tragic. I hate the stories like that, but they're also, they're heartbreaking, but they remind us you have to have constant vigilance, right?
yep,
And connection. You have to stay connected. If you're feeling disconnected, you're responsible. People can't read your mind. They are not going to come and rescue you. You
yeah,
have to reach out and do it. So Yeah, I'm an adamant believer of that. And I also tell people all the time, whenever I hear their story, oh my God, you better never drink again.
Yeah.
Because we say, oh, one day at a time, one day at a time. Yeah, well, not you. You
Not you.
better never drink again. And sometimes I got to tell you, I've had people come back to me years later and say, one time you told me you better never drink again. And it stuck with me,
That is great.
because sometimes you do. I had a friend whose husband had 33 years of sobriety and went back out and
Wow.
lost his sobriety and then struggled for about 6 years in and out of the program. At this point, I think he's got like 2 years now, but
Mm.
it's hard. It's hard to come back after that. But thank God he is back. And, but it ended in divorce, their relationship. It didn't work out because I don't know, but I think that's why he went back out drinking, because he just didn't like who he was anymore. And,
Yeah.
but there's so many reasons we can't figure it out.
Nope.
But it's one of the reasons why I coach now, because I really love to see the shifts in people. I love to be able to provide the path or shed some light, but it's the people that are doing the work. It's the when clients invest in themselves and really want to grow, they grow like crazy. And I
Yeah.
just absolutely love watching it. So the truth is, I really don't work with newcomers so much anymore. I still hear them and I'll applaud them, and I, will do anything I can in the first, but I don't like temporary sponsor them, or I don't walk people through the
Yeah.
steps right at the beginning anymore. I've done that work. I leave that to the younger generation now, or the people like you and people who are really still really involved in that at that level. But a lot
So
of times
those,
people can't relate to me. They're like, "What? You've been sober all your adult
yeah,
life?"
yeah,
They
yep,
don't.
yep.
Yeah,
But I see that, and I hear people talk about the same thing, similar kind of stories, but you're still doing things that like fill those essential requirements that we learned then, like doing that, helping other people,
yeah,
the service in your life, and even though you do it for an occupation, it still fulfills that spot in your life that where you're pouring you into other people, and that's essentially what sponsorship is, and I think in
yes,
order to have a successful life. And I don't, I'm of the belief that the 12 steps are really just ancient spiritual principles. There's nothing new in them. They were just packaged up in a way that alcoholics could hear it. Uh, that's an essential thing for a happy life, is to help other people.
yeah,
That's what
and
we're here for.
yeah. When it comes right down to it, I think that all of the skills that we learn in recovery are really very, it's easy for people with 5 or 10 years of sobriety to step into leadership positions, because now they know dependability, reliability, consistency. They know how to build trust with people. They know how to listen. They have empathy.
Mm.
They have the confidentiality. They have self-awareness, self-confidence. I mean, there's so many skills. I have a list of 23 of them. I just gave you 9 off the top of my head, but there's so many skills that lend themselves to leadership. And that's what I teach. And so as I'm training leaders, I'm like, these are all skills that alcoholics have. Recovering alcoholics have these skills. We should all be leading, but we don't, because we just don't. A lot of times people don't see themselves as leaders. But I'm thinking, well, are you sponsoring? Yeah. Are you leading meetings, like facilitating meetings? Yeah. Have you taken a service commitment? Yeah. Well, then you're a leader. Are you the head of your family? Yeah. Are you doing volunteer work in the community? Yeah. Well, then why don't you step up and lead people at work? It says practice these principles in all our affairs, right? Like, let's do it. Let's start showing people the real way to live.
Yeah.
And be that kind of example, because that's what leadership is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we also have really good bullshit detectors.
Yeah, we do. We do.
But we can help people to grow because we know how to do that. We know how to do it.
Yep.
So,
We've experienced that growth. So then therefore you have the tools to
yes,
help
you
others
do.
grow too.
totally.
Yeah. So just give me a little bit about yourself. You want to, just what you're doing today, and where maybe people might contact you if they've, if what you've said today, touched them. I know
Thank
that you
you.
have,
Yes, I have written a book. But you can find me at Emerge Leadership Academy. I wrote a book called Emerge, 7 Steps to Transformation, no matter what life throws at you, which was really good for the year 2020 because
yeah.
life threw us a big curveball there. And I also have a podcast called Emerge.Evolve.Lead. It's for people in recovery who want to step into leadership or hear inspiring stories about people who have done that. So yeah, I have a program also called Recovery at Work. So if you're ready to step up in your career, you could work with me as a coach. And I do personality at work. So I love helping people with their personality. So I have a blog every week. And if you want to go to my site and take the quiz, you can learn what animal best represents your leadership style.
I might have to do that.
You really should, because when your podcast comes out, you're going to want to have that newsletter. So you can send it to your friends.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, your podcast is going to come out in, I think, mid or early April, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's probably about where this one is of, that Clubhouse boost. I've always tried to stay like kind of just on time. I've never really like had a bunch of them in the can,
But you
and
got a
ready
bunch
to
of them
play.
in the
Now,
can
I
now.
have some in the can after,
Yeah.
because it's strike when the iron is hot. When I throw it out there and somebody says, I'd like to do it. Well, then I try to arrange it, before that fire goes out. And,
I know, right?
yeah,
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 it's a good way to do it.
yeah. And it
But I've
really
really
just, I
enjoyed our
love doing
talk.
this, I just really, it's something that lifts me. This is another thing that just, I had no idea that I would be doing this. And I had no idea how much it fills my cup to sit and get to know somebody and listen to them. And I would say, thank you for allowing me to participate in my recovery. Some guy told me you must participate in your recovery, Dan. And it was when I was bobbling around, just hoping I'd get it by osmosis. And this is the universe has given me some really unique ways to participate in my recovery. And I'm grateful for the ability for these, we got the standard ones, and it seems like I keep on getting these really, really cool ones.
Well, it's really true, and honestly, the better the more we do, the better we get.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, in the podcasting arena or in the blogging arena or speaking arena, and you're just already flying, Dan.
Thank
At
you.
6 years sober, it's so awesome to see how involved you are and how connected you are, and also what a great community we're developing on Clubhouse. It's just really been a great conversation, and I'm really happy for you that you have all of these wonderful people to connect with.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it has,
Yeah.
but it's fun. It's
Oh,
fun.
it is. With that, I'll just segue to my closing, because it has part of that in there. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault.
Right?
Because I'm having a blast, and I believe, and I know with all my heart that this is available to all. I'm not special here. This is available to everyone. And then I just want to thank everybody out there for listening today. And thank you for allowing Maureen and I to participate in our recoveries in this manner today. Peace out.